Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm chatting with David Elsley from Cardiol Therapeutics. The company has just announced that they have enrolled their first patient in their pivotal phase 3 Maverick trial for recurrent pericarditis. So we figured it would be a great time to have David on to walk us through the news. All right, everybody, enjoy the interview. David, it's nice to see you again.
Great to see you, Steve, and thanks for having us back.
Okay, let's start with the big news this morning. Cardiol announced that you guys have enrolled your first patients in the phase 3 trial. What will this trial aim to test?
This is a very important accomplishment for the organization. So our pivotal phase 3 trial is now formally underway. We've enrolled the first patient at one of the preeminent cardiovascular research centers in the United States. This trial is designed to definitively assess the impact of our drug, our oral drug therapy, on really the key uh, feature of pericarditis, which is inflammation of the heart, which causes debilitating chest pain, shortness of breath, limited mobility in these patients. It's really testing the impact of our drug to prevent new episodes of this disease. So it's taking patients that are well managed at present, that are at high risk for disease relapse, adding our drug to the treatment or placebo, and looking at difference between our drug and an inactive therapy. And the great hope for this trial, based on our phase 2 study, where we showed very striking impacts on pain, cardiac inflammation, and the ability to reduce annual episodes of pericarditis. We have great confidence and great hope that this trial will replicate that finding and support a new drug application with the US FDA and other regulators around the world.
So, just for our audience that's largely a retail investor focused audience, can you just maybe quickly give us the difference between phase 2 trials versus phase 3 trials?
Phase 2 trials typically look to confirm first and foremost the safety of a drug, look for any safety concerns, and then they look for what we refer to as indications of effectiveness of the drug. Are there good signs that the drug appears to be conferring a potential benefit to patients? And to the extent that you demonstrate that, which our phase 2 trial that was presented at the American Heart certainly did, well beyond our expectations, you then use that as the basis to go to a phase 3 trial, which is generally a larger number of patients, to definitively assess the efficacy component or the effectiveness of the drug, again, to try to replicate the observations in phase 2 and reaffirm the safety profile of the drug.
Where's the trial being conducted?
The trial is being conducted at preeminent cardiovascular research centers throughout the United States, Europe, and Canada. The lead pericardial disease centers in the US that also participate in our phase 2 program is Mass General at Harvard. We also have the Cleveland Clinic, which is perhaps the largest pericardial disease unit in the world. We have Rochester Mayo, Northwestern Chicago, and a number of other preeminent pericardial disease centers. We also have representation from preeminent centers in Europe as well as Canada.
So, can you give us any sort of sense of how big the trial is in terms of enrollment?
Sure. The trial is designed to enroll 110 patients. It's a randomized placebo-controlled study, so 55 will be enrolled into the active group with our drug, and 55 will be enrolled in a one-to-one randomization into the placebo group. And what we're looking to observe is a significant difference between the impact of our drug versus placebo on preventing disease relapse in this patient population that is at extraordinarily high risk for relapse because they're coming off of immunosuppressive therapies. And we know that patients, when they withdraw from immune suppressant therapies, typically within 3 months, 75% of them experience disease relapse. The great hope for our drug is that we can prevent that relapse or significantly reduce the numbers of relapses.
What does the timeline look like for the trial?
Our public guidance is that we anticipate we will enroll this trial over the next 9 to 12 months. And then the primary efficacy endpoint is at 24 weeks thereafter. So if we hit the more ambitious timeline with respect to enrollment, we could see data mid-06 from this trial. And that would provide, we believe, subject to outcomes of the trial, support for a new drug application that could see entrance of our drug into a market where immune suppressants in the severe end of the disease category alone are generating 500 million in annual sales. And Wall Street analysts, not Cardiol, but Wall Street analysts are forecasting the growth rate for that drug could reach 1 billion by 2028.
So I'm going to take a step back here just because there's going to be people who are watching this interview and they're unfamiliar with what happened in the phase 2 trial. Maybe you could just give us a quick little overview on that the outcome that came from the phase 2 trial.
So, just maybe a little bit about pericarditis to begin with. So, pericarditis is inflammation in the sac that surrounds the heart. When patients develop inflammation, typically secondary to a viral infection, they can experience in their prime of life. Most patients are typically 45, 50 years of age. They're generally healthy, they're typically athletic, and for reasons not well understood, a virus or other insult can cause the development, or for example, open heart surgery can cause pericarditis to develop. This leads to in the case of recurrent pericarditis, it leads to frequent episodes of severe chest pain, shortness of breath, and the only remedy is to develop a sedentary lifestyle because any form of mobility leads to exacerbation of the chest pain syndrome. And this can go on for years in patients. So the study that we conducted, the phase 2 program, which was led by 8 major centers, pericardial disease centers in the United States. The lead centers was Cleveland Clinic and the Mayo Clinic. We enrolled 27 patients who were on optimal drug therapy for pericarditis. So they were on, say, ibuprofen, they were on colchicine, many were on corticosteroids. They were on best available treatment, but not immune suppressants, not IL-1 blocker therapy. But yet, they also had to have a 4 out of 10 on a pain scale. So they had to be suffering debilitating chest pain, notwithstanding the fact that they were on the best available medications, with the exception of immune suppressants. They were enrolled in our trial. We added our drug on top of the background medication and then measured the change in their pain at 8 weeks. We also looked at the change in a blood marker of inflammation, which is called C-reactive protein. And at 8 weeks, we showed a significant, a very dramatic reduction in the pain they were suffering. These patients came into the trial at 6 out of 10. We basically brought them down to a pain-free state as a group, the vast majority of them. Our drug is oral versus the current immune suppressants, which are injectable, so patients prefer that. And then at the extension period, which is quite interesting, the study went on. All patients, the 27 patients, were asked at 8 weeks, would they like to volunteer and go into an extension period where we take them off their background medications and just leave them on Cardiol's drug and see how well they do in terms of pain syndrome. 24 of 27 agreed, which we felt very inspired by because that is a high percentage of patients. It really signals patients are deriving some benefit. Patients don't typically take a drug for 2 months for pain and not derive a benefit and then agree to take it for 4 more months. And in fact, in that 4-month extension period, when we removed all background medications, patients stayed with their pain well managed. Their C-reactive protein entered the normal range, and their episodes of relapse of pericarditis were strikingly reduced from approximately 5.8 down to less than 1.
Okay, so outside of Maverick, so we're talking about the Maverick study right now. You guys also are expecting top line data from the Archer trials sometime soon. Why is it that you guys are pursuing two different trial programs for the same drug?
So it's all based on the experimental evidence. We went to the world leaders in myopericardial disease. So pericarditis is inflammation of the sac around the heart. Myocarditis is inflammation of the heart muscle itself. Myocarditis typically affects a younger demographic, people under the age of 35. You may have read about it because it's been described as a complication of mRNA vaccines, COVID, flu virus. The challenge with myocarditis, unlike pericarditis, is myocarditis can cause death. It can cause fulminant heart failure to develop in a young person. There is no standard of care. There's no drug that is on the U.S. market with a label claim for the treatment of myocarditis. So there's no standard of care for the disease, and it remains a prominent cause of cardiac transplant in severe patients. So there's an urgency to try to develop what would be potentially the first drug with a label claim or added to guidelines for the treatment of myocarditis, which causes chest pain, shortness of breath, poor quality of life in about 70,000 young people in the US, whereas pericarditis in general affects about 160,000, and those that have relapsing recurring disease, it's about 40,000. So this is significant numbers of patients affected. Similar numbers that I just mentioned are affected in Europe. So really there's a common link between the two conditions. They both involve inflammation in the heart. One, we believe, is more fibrotic, so causes fibrosis, which is an inelasticity in the heart and can cause heart failure. So perhaps in the myocarditis, we may see signals of impacts on that could be read through into our heart failure program, which is our third drug in development as well.
All right. Well, David, thanks very much for hopping on here. Congratulations on the enrollment of your first patients in the phase 3 trial. And hopefully, as we get some more results coming out from the Archer trials, you'll hop back on here and walk our audience through the results.
Happy to do that, Steve, and good to see you today.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this interview, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Guys, also let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks for watching, everyone.